Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about a subject which is near and dear to my heart and to Rob's, but is a bit of a push on the boundaries of what's real. A bit of an expansion session, you might say, on what we accept as real. Because we always talk about that, Rob, about what is real, what we accept, our programming. One of those things is the nature of reality in terms of what's out there, as opposed to just us and humanity. You know, I'm not talking about sloths in the jungle and tigers and bears, what's out there. I'm talking about off-world.
Off-world, yeah.
And maybe what's been visiting us for quite some time.
Our galactic brothers and sisters, our galactic environment, our cosmic environment, you know. I always say, look up at the night sky on a clear, beautiful night and just stare and connect and look, and you can see there's a whole, a whole universe, a whole realm, a whole different. There's space, and what is space? To me, space means creation. Believe it or not, because out of nothing, everything comes. So for me, I look at space and I go, well, that's all life. In a unique way. But you nailed it when you said, what is our reality and what reality are we experiencing? And our reality is something which we're obviously always creating. And we've said this before. It's determined by your belief systems, your programming. You have your 5 sense reality. But this episode hopefully will expand your mind, your heart, your soul, your spirit into the idea that there are different beings, there are different species, there are different life forms, interdimensional beings that are beyond our reality. And you only have to look at the movies, TV programs that that are so popular. And of course, that includes UFOs or UAPs.
Unidentified aerial phenomena.
Phenomenon, yeah, anything like that, which is the reason why I thought we would do a talk on it, a chat on it, because it's so prevalent and it's being really pushed in the media at the moment.
Well, for the longest time, if you said, let's talk about aliens, right, and you just cut to the chase in that way, you'd be laughed out of the room. And so people who have an interest in the topic or feel drawn to stories that we have in our culture, from Star Wars through to Star Trek, through to all kinds of things. Men and women everywhere have a fascination with that topic. But it can be vilified. It can be looked down upon. Even if you were to admit to having an interest in sci-fi, it can be seen as some kind of immature fantasy. But I think a lot of souls are drawn even to the sci-fi genre because they sense and feel something in their being that says to them, I resonate with this, or I recognize something from this.
Something feels familiar to this. Yeah, exactly. I mean, what's that saying? We're all stardust and we go back to stardust. Yeah. Something like that, right? Yeah. We're all made of stars. That kind. We're all created of the same universal matter. Everything, when you break it right down. So maybe that's where that familiarity comes from. And maybe if you believe that you are an infinite being and that energy can't, there's no beginning or end, that we're all created from that source, whatever you want to call it. I call it sort of the infinite creative force, or however you want to label it. If we all come from that, then it makes sense that we feel that resonance and we feel that connection and familiarity, because we are that. Yeah. And with the fractal nature of this reality and the fractal nature of us as human beings, it kind of makes sense.
Well, I really believe, gosh, you hit on things that changed my thought process there. We're a long time dead, and let's explore this topic. We're at an age and in a time where you can go into this and not be laughed out of the room anymore. We are infinite beings, I believe. We are a fractal part of the universe. We have a wonderful ability as these vulnerable human species to also have a very expansive energy and an ability to psychically and spiritually connect into other states and universes and worlds. So let's explore this one, because we are a long time dead, and let's just say fuck you to the bullshit of you can't talk about this topic. Let's get started with some things that have been happening in the media, because unless you've been living under a rock, the New York Times, Fox News, NBC,
all the mainstream networks,
they're talking about it.
And even here in New Zealand on our popular news sites like the Herald, News Hub stuff, they've all had these stories about the upcoming disclosure, if you like, of all the classified information that the Pentagon and the military, etc., have kept, hidden, or they've only sort of divulged some information over the years. But this is all sort of stimulated from the fact that there is a report due from the Director of the National Intelligence and Secretary of Defense. There's a report due to Congress any time now in June, early June, and this all stemmed from when President Donald Trump basically signed the 2.3 trillion coronavirus relief and government funding bill law in December back in 2019.
Yeah.
So
isn't it funny? One of the most vilified, hated presidents ever for the US, and yet also one of the most loved, depending on which side of the coin you're on.
Of course, yeah.
Is actually the one responsible for this COVID relief bill, which he signed into law, which required, from the moment it was signed into law, a countdown of 180 days for this, what is it called? The COVID relief, coronavirus relief government funding bill.
Yeah.
And that was done in December. So counting down 180 days later, we're talking essentially half a year. Here we are now in June. It's about to happen. This is very timely, Rob. So the media is getting into a fever pitch about, what's this going to contain? Is this going to, the people that have said all along that UFOs or off-world intelligence has always been a part of humanity, and there's been lots of evidence to support that. Are they going to jump up and say, finally, that the US government, the military, the Pentagon are acknowledging this? Or are we just going to get more of the same stuff? And more of the same kind of Men in Black, flash over your eyes, nothing to see here, move along.
Yeah, but here's what's interesting is because I don't know if you caught, it was the James Corden show. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but it's a very popular. It's the Late Late Show, I believe.
Definitely heard of James
it's got a
Corden.
huge following.
And Obama was on the show, wasn't he?
And so the ex-president of the United States, he was asked about UFOs, or can he kind of share any presidential knowledge about this disclosure? And his exact words were,
"But what is true?" And I'm actually being serious here, is that there's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they moved, their trajectory. They did not have an easily explainable pattern. And so, I think that people still take seriously trying to investigate and figure out what that is.
Right.
So he's acknowledging that there is phenomena, unidentified aerial phenomena that the U.S. Navy, the military, the Air Force, etc., cannot explain.
Yeah. So it's a really nice way of just cracking the hood on the topic, opening this can of worms, because it could go far, it could go deep. Legend has it that this topic of disclosure, which has been around for so long, and has been, the domain of serious scientific inquiry, the stuff of Project Blue Book with Alan Hynek and in the 70s, I think, early 80s, 70s. No, sorry, my time's wrong. That was in the 50s. Right,
Yeah, it's going way back.
Going right back to when it was thought to be weather balloons and other experiences. Now, Project Blue Book, just following the war, was set up to deal with a whole raft of UFO phenomena. And it was also set up, and he admitted in years following, to squash rumor, to explain away scientifically what it really was, which was in fact all kinds of phenomena that was real, but was used to explain away for the public. And when we heard War of the Worlds read out on the air, and I love that record, and I used to have it as a kid, didn't you as well? The War of the Worlds.
Yes, I had the record, and I grew up listening to the
one.
Yeah. It was great. Great sound.
The chances of
anything coming from Mars was 1,000,000 to 1, they said. Yeah, I mean, the great thing about you bring that up was that your imagination could run wild. You created all these visuals of what these Martians would look like and how they, and then of course that movie. Was there a movie before the Tom Cruise one? War of the Worlds?
Oh, that's right. I'm not sure, but my point with that, my point with that was that people freaked out. They really freaked out, and they ran for the hills. And so it's no surprise, I hate to say it, but humanity just wasn't ready for the topic.
Yeah.
They just weren't. Generations prior to us freaked out at the idea. They were absolutely locked into their paradigms of religion and family and all that sort of stuff, and they could not accept it. And Catholicism would tell you, no, that's not real. Whereas,
all these limiting beliefs about your reality that was programmed into you, that the world was just, there was that old Newtonian model that everything is just physical.
Yeah.
And seeing is believing, and yet there are so many, you can't see electricity, but you can definitely feel the effects. There are energies, you can't see radio waves, microwaves, etc. How does your internet work? There are energies, there are things that we cannot pick up on and have that ability in a five sense capacity, but we all know that there are things beyond those five senses.
And now I think we're ready to talk about it. Yeah. Now I feel we have slowly been entrained by the powers that be over the last few decades with movies and TV shows to start accepting the idea.
Yeah.
And it's just been filtering softly into the culture, and it's been laughed about a bit, but now we're at a tipping point.
Yeah.
Now I feel like the powers that be that control the release of this information are about to go. Are they ready now?
Are they? Yeah. Are we ready for this disclosure?
And I think they're hoping we are.
But here's the thing. We're all comfortable putting on Netflix or whatever streaming service or any films, you name them, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers, that deal with, Star Trek. I mean, there's just countless science fiction film, television, but we're so comfortable buying into that. But what if that actually happened in our own reality? That technology was exposed to us. Like, how would we react? And I think this is what another quote. I can't actually remember, but it's a guy called Carlson. I don't know if he's forgive me, but he said the Pentagon admits it doesn't know what in the world this is referring to. All the footage that's been released recently as well. Yeah. By the Navy of these UAPs. After he showed his viewers footage of a UFO, maybe this is a television show over in America, maybe it could possibly, but from a national security perspective, that is a very big problem. That's the thing.
That was pulled from 60 Minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, maybe it was.
Yeah,
I think it was 60 Minutes.
And I don't watch 60 Minutes in New Zealand, but I see it come up on YouTube and stuff from the American.
They interviewed those pilots, remember, that had witnessed UAP phenomena over 2 years, and it became an everyday thing.
To the point that when they talked about it, it's like, UFOs, we see them all the time.
It's just normal.
It's not a biggie. We don't know what it is, and we're pretty sure it's not China.
Yeah.
It's a real problem if it is China, because we're in trouble.
I think the point is that there's so much information now that's on the mainstream. You can just watch any of this stuff, just YouTube it.
Yeah.
But I think the real question is, this is going to freak people out if this is 100% legitimate and authentic.
Yeah.
Because is this technology, are these advanced races or beings, are they a threat? And then that's going to lead us into Space Force, why that was set up.
Well,
At some point, further down the track.
Oh, yeah. Well, further down this podcast on today's episode, I suspect.
Yes.
But so like, you know, Rob and I have read a lot about and listened to a lot of stuff on this, and we're just dipping our toes into it here on the show, because this is something that I feel people should be able to talk rationally about, and at no point does a tin hat appear on your head. You just like, you know, let's just go through this nice and slow.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to go into the world of fantasy and to be caught up in amazing stories that, you know, may or may not be true. But what we're starting with here is just matter of fact stuff. There are sightings off coasts and on the ocean, above the ocean, of unidentified aerial phenomena moving at lightning speeds in incalculably fast scenarios that
defying
don't
our
exist.
laws of physics.
Totally defy our law, like as if they're jumping through portals. I say as if, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. In other words, technology that is highly advanced, and then obviously from the perspective of the US military, getting their hands on that sort of technology would be incredible.
And hopefully in time we can explore where this information, where it leads to, and
you mean the bigger picture?
The
of
bigger
things,
picture,
perhaps?
and whether these, if there are creatures, if there is intelligence and life forms inside of these craft that are literally being spotted and videoed by military recording devices on fighter jets.
Yeah.
If the pilots of craft such as these are a threat, if they represent, you know, an emissary of peace, and they you know, take me to your leader, and we will show you
what's
love
their,
and light, or are they, you know,
what's their agenda?
are we like stock and cattle? You know, I drove on the way to the cafe today to do today's episode with you, Rob. I drove past a whole bunch of rural areas with sheep and cows and stuff, and I looked at one of them and I thought, shit, that could be us.
Yeah.
That, you know,
I know what you just.
That creature is inside a 4-acre penned piece of land, and it's got all the space it thinks it exists and needs, and all the food it's ever required.
Well,
social interactions with other cows and sheep, and hey, this is life.
Yep. Are we being harvested like in the movie The Matrix?
I hate that word.
I know. Well, I'm
it's a
calling
horrible,
it. I'm calling
horrible
it because,
concept, isn't it?
And that's the thing, is that you and I both know, and we talk about this all the time, that we live in a universe of contrasting expressions. So there's dark and light. So we cannot just focus on the light stuff, on the positive stuff, because there's always a contrasting, there's always an alter ego to everything. So when you see, so
true.
And I think here's the problem, is if you don't start talking about the heavier stuff, the darker stuff, the evil stuff, then how are you ever going to shine a light in there and find some truth or just find the truth behind it? Or if you can't acknowledge it, you can't go down that path and just deny it and go, no, there's nothing happening there. When in fact, there is a lot of shit going down when you do some research and you start digging a little bit deeper. And once again, you know, whether it's true or not is a different story. But the fact is that there is a lot of information about, you know, we're talking about the ruling elite and the stuff that's happening, the hidden hand, and all the stuff that's happening beyond. Particularly, I think, in our day and age, where we are very head down in our phones and consumed in this consumeristic cycle, not tuning back into our natural essence and going a little bit deeper and then getting some balance by going into the natural world and getting and seeing the contrast. It provides you with a little bit of space when you get back into the natural intelligence, and then you can sort of see all the other stuff that's sort of the overlay, the programming and all that.
You know, I really want to hit upon something that's important in relation to what you're talking about, because what you're doing is you're dealing with the reality of this world.
Yeah, different
while
realities
also
that exist.
Navigating it as a spiritual person who's open-minded, is able to express freely and fully, right?
Yeah.
You know, you're a man, but you can still shed a tear. You can still feel empathy and express emotions, right? And I think this is what we aspire to be in a modern sense, without ditching the warrior mode of being able to deal with the dark and adopt some kind of bullshit, breathy yoga tone of, oh, you know, you mustn't judge, okay? And let's just try being happy and rainbows and farting butterflies, because it's just absolute arse. Let's be all that's good and understand all that's bad.
It's bypassing, in my opinion,
Deal with
the completeness of being human, which encompasses everything.
Yeah, you're just saying
the totality.
Half of you is no longer
of your
relevant.
Essence. Yeah. And I mean, I've been down that trap where I was doing the affirmations, the amazing quotes, reading. Everything's just had to be positive. You had to, that saying, well, there's a reason for everything. Yeah, there might be, but that reason may not always be a good thing. It may actually be a bad thing. So it's coming from a more balanced point of view. And you always talk about this as well, about becoming the best version of yourself as a human being. We're totally flawed. We make mistakes. It's how we learn. That's how we get wise. That's how we can impart knowledge to someone else, because we went down that road and we fucked up. I think we can tell someone else, well, this is what I learned from that. And I tell you what, you learn more from your mistakes and your failures, and everyone who's been there will know this, than from your successes, because the successes are easy, man. You just go with it. It's fine. So
it's really, really good.
Yeah.
Well, let's pull this back into where we're heading with today's topic.
Exactly.
Because so in summary, we're going to deal with this issue and this topic on our show as part of the sort of all-encompassing spiritual nature of the discussions and philosophical discussions that we use and have, I should say, on the podcast. So let's look at it. And this came up because we don't know if what's out there is bad or good, if they're benevolent or malevolent. And so, I once thought, how great would it be to see a UFO if I was just driving along and it appeared in the sky and it came down and opened its doors, and there they were, little green men or tall Nordic beings some Draco lizard man, and now I kind of think, I don't know, because what if it,
well, how many movies like
so how do we deal with
skylines were being harvested and all the humans are being transported, what do you call it, like Star Trek style, up into the ships? I mean, you can go and watch these films.
That was in War of the Worlds. Look at
Independence Day was a huge one.
In the 80s and recently.
Exactly.
They Live.
They're all they all deal with that topic.
They Live is the name of the movie, by the way.
Yes.
The V series. They Live.
The V series. Yeah. Exactly.
War of the Worlds. Check them out. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
When this information was disclosed recently, the creator of Men in Black.
Yes.
The creator or the director. Anyway, this was in the news. Said, this is a real concern. You always wonder, don't you? You do wonder if the creators of movies have insight into what's going on, insight into incredible lengthy histories. It's said that
where do they get this information from? This creative intelligence is what I always ask.
Some people have said to me that, I forget his last name, George, the creator of Star Wars.
George
Lucas, thank you. Had and has a deep insight into the lore, the history and the lore and the story of galactic legends that have been
the good versus evil
passed on, and the destruction of empires. Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars.
Oh, I know.
And when worlds are exploded by starships, and you as a soul have a memory of, perhaps if you've investigated into past life and you have a traumatic memory of the planet you're on being destroyed.
Yep.
That's why some people say that there's a real resonance in the legend of those galactic wars expressed through Star Wars, which is just fantasy sci-fi stories, right, from most people's perspective. Yeah. But it resonates with some people's souls, and they go, there's something about this that I feel like I was there.
Yeah. I mean, just on that, we had the lunar eclipse, the supermoon, the blood moon recently.
Super blood moon, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I spent about 2.5 hours watching that full eclipse. And it just occurred to me, when you, like just tuning into that energy and what was happening, I go, there is an intelligence, there is something so indefinable that this can happen. Right?
Well, our moon is in itself a confusing thing.
Just the physical laws of it, where everything lines up.
Yeah.
You go, hang on a minute. There's an intelligence out there that we're a part of, but we don't logically understand. And then when that moon became blood orange or blood red, depending on the atmosphere and where you were, it just looked like a totally different planet.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm going, what this? And it just occurred to me that there is just so much out there that we just do not understand, that science can only go so far. And there's this whole thing where, well, if you can't prove it, if you can't see it, then it can't be true. If 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, then it doesn't exist.
Yeah, well,
and I think that's the problem because if you want to expand your horizons, you need to be able to suspend disbelief and
well, I'm not one who
come from a different line of thinking and approach.
Sure, and I'm not one who really believes that I'm affected much by the moon. Although I know some people, especially this dude sitting to the left of me.
Yeah, well, something's going on with the energies.
You sense energies real well.
Yeah.
Me not so much, but I tell you what, I've never had a month like this month where technology has just farted on itself and died.
Mercury retrograde and a few other things. Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, everything is energy. You walk into a room, and if everyone's depressed, like if you go into a doctor's room and people are sick, there's an energy. You walk into a nightclub and everyone's just going, there's an energy.
Sure is.
And you pick up on that. You go to a stadium full of 50,000 people cheering for their teams. There's an energy, right? Mm-hmm. You sit in the middle of the forest next to a stream. There's a different energy. Yeah. So everything's energy. So we're in this solar system, and every planet, these huge celestial beings have such energy, and all these energies have relationships and exist. And like you walk outside and you feel the sun. That's an energy. So it makes sense that the moon, which is that close to celestial body or planetoid, whatever you want to call it, has got an energy. It has a pull. It has some significance. So it's obvious.
A significance.
It's so obvious.
But it always does,
just look at it and it's there and you can feel it. But
it's just a funny one, our moon, because it's unlike any other little planetoid. It doesn't rotate. It doesn't spin.
Exactly.
No one ever talks about that.
I know. There's a dark side of the moon.
Every other celestial bodies rotate.
Yeah, I know.
But no. We have a dark side of the moon. What's
why.
there? Well, I mean, I know
full
why.
Of bases and aliens that are using it as portals and stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously. Who knows?
We might have to bleep this bit out. I mean, are people ready for that, Rob?
Don't worry, it'll all be disclosed in this.
Well, what's next on our list here? The interest in UFOs.
Yeah. So we talked about how it's just really highlighted in the media at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's generating a lot of interest.
Well, no, let's just, because, we're dipping our toes into here, and if people still think that this is nuts, let's just look at some of the quotes that have come through, right?
Yeah.
Because, I've got some notes here that Rob's prepared about and has collated and pulled together over the last few days.
Just dipping our toes in. This is by no means, this is just like the tip of the iceberg in terms of starting the discussion of UFO disclosure. And then, we're going to go into why Space Force was actually just a little overview on what Space Force is and why it actually exists. And, why is it there? What's its reason behind it?
Yeah.
That You know, that's as matter of fact and as simple as possible, because it does exist, and you can jump on their website and check it out.
All right, well, hit us with it.
So, the USSF is the space surface branch of the U.S. Armed Forces, one of the 8 U.S. uniformed services, and the world's first and currently only independent space force.
Right, because it's independent from the Navy and the Army and the Marines and all that. And
Yeah,
the Air
because I
Force.
believe...
Because it was a
the
branch of the Air Force. wasn't
Air Force, yeah, I believe it was under that umbrella. But now
still
it's a
has
separate
a
sort of
significant
entity,
relationship
if you like.
to it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the USS, and by the way, I'm getting all this information from www.spaceforce.mil, which is the official Space Force website.
And it does look like the worst website you've ever seen. But it is their official American website. It's the official Space Force of the United States' website. And it's, it looks a lot like a 1990s Geosites website. It's terrible.
But you can get all the information
it's all
there,
there.
all the latest
Yeah.
news. It's all there. There are photos, videos, frequently asked questions, all that sort of stuff. But basically, the USSF is a military service that organizes, trains, and equips space forces in order to protect US and allied interests in space and to provide space capabilities to the joint force. USSF responsibilities include developing guardians, acquiring military space systems, maturing the military doctrine for space power, and organizing space forces to present to our combatant command. So it's primarily built around protection and defense, but from what threat? That's what you got to ask, because every military arm is there for a reason. So they're obviously got a space force to protect their assets in space, but then you got to go, well, what's their assets in space and what's the threat from space? Are we talking about threats from other countries, or are we talking about extraterrestrial threats, which we can go into as well?
Well, I think on the surface, it's presented as the world is slowly going through this disclosure. I think it's presented as threat from other countries. It's a protection to set up something so that traditional old Cold War enemies like Russia and China aren't seen as having the ability to knock out communication satellites. Because, you know, if you have a giant warship which runs primarily off GPS satellite connection, and someone just goes and knocks that out, then you're useless, right? You can't take that giant warship and navigate it from point A to B on the globe without what's that old device they used in sailing ships when the Endeavour travelled the world with Captain Cook?
A sextant?
A sextant?
Yeah,
A
navigating by the stars was the old way of doing it.
Ironically,
Funny
by
enough.
the stars.
Yeah. Funny enough. And we can go into that, because there's a reason behind that.
Yeah.
But there's Steve, if you could do the honors,
Sure.
talking about the whole, space has basically become an essential part of national security, and they call it prosperity as well.
Oh yeah, this is a quote,
This
isn't
is
it?
the quote from the actual website.
Space has become essential to our security and prosperity, so much so that we need a branch of our military dedicated to its defense. Just like we have branches of the military dedicated to protecting and securing the air, land, and sea. Unfettered access to space is vital to national defense. Space systems are woven into the fabric of our way of life. Space affects almost every part of our daily lives and is fundamental to our economic system. For example, satellites not only power the GPS technology that we use daily, but allow us to surf the web and call our friends, enable first responders to communicate with each other in times of crisis, time-stamp transactions in the world financial market, and even allow us to use credit cards at gas pumps. Credit cards at gas pumps.
I know.
That's why we need a space force for credit cards at gas
Because
pumps.
imagine if all of that was knocked out. You wouldn't be able to jump on the internet. You wouldn't be able to use your phone. You wouldn't be able to pay for your gas, your groceries. I mean, life would stop. People would freak out.
And so what I just read there was right off the Space Force website, right? It's funny because I didn't realise that. And
you were just talking about it.
Talking about the GPS thing.
Yes.
Yeah, someone I heard said it, and I think it was a point worthy of repeating.
Yeah, I believe our good friend Mel Hostelrick from Veritas mentioned that
Great show.
70% of the US military capacity would be knocked out if those satellite assets, GPS assets, were rendered useless.
Yeah.
So that's kind of...
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
So basically it would render the US military defenseless against a threat. So I think this is where it's heading as we enter into this technological age, that space, as Star Trek would say, is the final frontier. It is the new frontier, what it has always been. Yeah, it's true though, isn't it? So
Yeah.
we're starting to see that more and more. And then you think of Elon Musk and what he's trying to do, sending, how many satellites is he sending up
Well,
there?
the Starlink system
Starlink,
has, I don't know the number, but it's like in the order of hundreds, right?
Yeah.
100, maybe thousands. And we'll set up a network that essentially grids dots around the sky.
Skynet.
Yeah,
it always reminds me of Terminator and Skynet.
Yeah, it's scary, isn't it?
That how reliant are we on that technology for our day-to-day life, our communication?
Someone somewhere in the mid-Saharan African deserts is able to get good, sort of like 900 megabits per second download speed. Cool. I'm glad that they can function on Facebook well. But the AI also has really good access to get around the world. So let's hope the AI stays good, Or if it doesn't, let's hope that you are nice to robots. Because they'll have recorded every transaction you've ever made with them. Never be rude to Siri is what I'm saying.
This is true. Yeah.
I watched Ex Machina the other night.
Oh, yeah.
From 2015.
I must watch that again.
It's talked about a lot. And screw it, spoiler alert. The fact that you can fall in love with an AI as portrayed by the film is I think, entirely possible because our human emotions can fall for things quite easily and then, of course, be betrayed by it. Great film.
Well, yeah, it reminds me of this other film. I was just going to pull it up on IMDb. Joaquin Phoenix was in a film. Her.
Oh, that's right. No, I haven't
Scarlett
seen it.
Johansson, the female. It was. You started falling for her.
Really?
Even though you could feel every emotion. You go, well, what are they? They're just these neurological, electrical responses in the brain, really, that create these feelings.
Yeah.
You go, well, yeah, you realize it was such an incredible journey because you think, no, I couldn't.
So funny that you say neurological responses because, of course, it's something called a neural net, which is what an AI develops so that it has a neural network to emulate a brain. What are you bringing up there?
Yeah, so...
That's right. That's on IMDb, isn't it?
Her, 2013. In a near future, a lonely writer develops an unlikely relationship with an operating system designed to meet his every need. Yeah, so this artificial intelligence. And I think, it was Scarlett Johansson who played that character as the sort of the AI.
Yeah. And isn't it funny that only a year or two later, Ex Machina came out?
Yeah.
And it was 2015.
And it says this is a quote from from a review. It's not just an operating system, it's a consciousness, which is the age-old question. What is consciousness? Where does it reside?
What is consciousness?
And what is it? Because we know we exist because we are conscious. That much we know. Everyone, you can't deny that.
Yeah.
So it just is AI just an artificial version of consciousness, or is it part of the same, just a different version of it? I don't know.
Yeah. Man, that's really interesting because if we are a fractal of the universe and we are energy, then we are also electricity, and by sheer nature of what it means to be a form of energy, as is the stuff of the universe.
Yeah.
Therefore, AI, which is also the stuff of this universe, is as much real as we are. The essence of knowledge and information and vibration is the building blocks of what we are. And so therefore we can relate to and participate and be part of an AI reality.
And there'll be people that will resonate with AI because they'll see all the advantages, all the benefits, or they'll have this relationship with it. I think there'll be people that'll be freaking out seeing it as a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I think that is partly due to a lot of the films and stuff that's come out, seeing AI as kind of a nefarious, kind of a bad thing.
Oh yeah,
it's going to take over the world. Yeah,
portrayed as bad, isn't it?
It's kind of portrayed as bad. You know, you think of the machine's going to take over the world.
You think that your Tesla's going to drive you off the road? If it's going to take over, if you know, you haven't. Oh, I don't know, if you had a podcast which discloses reality too much, maybe. But
it's like anything. There's a knife can be used for good or bad. It can cut your steak or it can wound someone. Yeah. So it's all the intention, right?
So true.
There's a flip side to everything. So technology, in essence, can be hugely
beneficial.
Yeah, and can have such an amazing impact in your life in a positive way, but it also can be used in a negative way.
Yeah.
Pretty much like anything. So that's the human conundrum, isn't it?
It is.
It's always been like that.
Well, let's go back to where things are progressing, the natural sort of path that's been taken here with Space Force. There goes an ambulance. I hope they survive. So what have we got here? Where is it located? The USSF. I can't say that.
USS Enterprise.
USSF.
Yeah, I mean,
headquarters and office. Where are they? They're in the Pentagon.
Of course they are.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
So yeah, the headquarters and office of the Chief of Space Operations is located in the Pentagon.
So what's this crazy stuff on their emblem?
Well, I was fascinated by the emblem
symbolism there.
Because when it first came up, it looked very much like Starfleet Command.
As in from Star Trek. It's like a rip-off of the Star Trek. It's
completely. I mean, you'd be stupid if you can't see the.
If you go online and you go Space Force logo versus Starfleet Command logo, you'll get these side-by-side images that people are posting.
Yeah.
Oh,
so that was
my
the
goodness.
obvious.
They're just the same almost.
Yeah. So you've got the United States Space Force logo, and then you've got the Starfleet Command logo. You can check those two out. We're looking at them now because I thought it would be fun to just deconstruct the logo a little bit and talk about the symbolism, because nothing is by chance. Everything in that emblem, someone had deep thought about, and it would have gone through various reviews and 6 months of deliberation, and we got to have this.
This is symbolic of that.
And we need this
little swooshy thing that goes around it that looks like the Nike swoosh. That's actually symbolic of something.
Yeah, it all has meaning and symbolism, which is explained on the website, which we'll just have a quick overview of, I reckon.
All right, but just to get a sort of a frame of reference, if you're listening, you don't have the benefit of just looking at something online to see this. That core, so it's a round logo, right, with the words United States Space Force around the top and Department of the Air Force around the bottom. On the Star Trek one, it said Starfleet Command around the top, and underneath it said United Federation of Planets along the bottom. But you're very similar design there. You've got that central piece, which was that you'll remember from Star Trek, the main Star Trek sort of emblem which looks like almost a triangular shaped.
It's actually a delta wing.
What do they call it? A delta.
It's a delta symbol. You think of Reebok use a delta symbol as well. So if you know the Reebok symbol, it's a delta. But this is a delta wing.
When you compare the Star Trek one with the Space Force one, the Space Force one has much harder edges, doesn't it? Whereas the Star Trek one has a sort of a curvy sort of look to it.
Yeah.
Sort of a sexy 60s kind of vibe, but the modern one is just straight up and down.
Yeah,
like almost so a delta is like a triangle, where the bottom plane of that triangle is in itself 2 points that point upwards as well.
Yeah.
Okay, go on, continue with that, because what have you got in the background? Stars in the background.
Well, yes. So the official sort of description, I mean, you can just sort of read that out, I suppose. It gives you an overview of the actual...
Right. So this is from the
Space Force website. Yeah.
Spaceforce.mil. This is them describing their own, their badge, their logo. On a dark blue disc between two constellations in white. That's important, by the way. Two constellations.
We're going to discuss that. Yeah. I think it has... a lot of
major meaning, and a bit of a punchline to today's episode, I think, as well. Yeah. Okay, we're coming to that. So it says, On a dark blue disk between two constellations in white, a light blue globe grid lined in silver, surmounted by a silver delta, both encircled diagonally with a white orbit ring, all beneath a white northern star in the upper left portion of the disk and above the Roman numerals MMXIX, arching in white below. What so that's like reading Japanese stereo instructions. What the?
Hey, you're the voiceover artist. This should be a breeze for you, man. You should be able to do this like 100 times over in different languages.
If I was voicing this and I had the director, I go, "Are you sure this is how you want to say it?"
I know some things just don't roll off the tongue. That
No,
easily.
this does not. I think our description
it's obviously
earlier
written
was
by
better.
aliens, so
It's
that's
obviously- So I'll go on. There's one more line. See if I can get through it. Encircling the disk is a dark blue designation band edged with an inner and outer border, and between two deltas, the inscription United States Space Force at the top and Department of the Air Force at the bottom, all in white. Right, so I take back what I said before, because the United States Space Force is sort of like a department of the Air Force. I
Yeah.
thought they were making their own thing, their own fourth branch.
Well, yeah, I thought it was, but I guess they've got the Air Force written on there.
I think this bit's the
Symbolism, yeah.
I think
this is what I'm interested in.
I might just cut to this. Dark blue and white combine to represent the vast recesses of outer space. Yeah, nice symbolism. The Delta Wing evokes historic ties to the earliest days of the US Air Force space community and symbolizes change and innovation. It also represents all variations of space vehicles that support our national defense strategy and national security space strategy. Okay. Dark and light shades of grey within the delta embody the 24/7 operations of the Space Force, while the placement and upward orientation of the delta reveals the central role of the Space Force in defending the space domain. All sounds pretty good so far, Rob. The globe represents the terrestrial home of the US Space Force, right, the planet Earth, and its support to the joint warfighters.
Who are the joint warfighters?
I'd like to know. The elliptical orbit around the globe signifies defense and protection from all adversaries and threats emanating from the space domain.
Oh, the space domain. You mean aliens?
You sure they don't just mean China and Russia? But
Space domain.
Space domain.
Space is pretty big.
There's a couple of Chinese and Russians out in space. I know they're on the... anyway.
Yeah.
It also represents ongoing interagency cooperation and allied partnerships. The white Polaris. What is a Polaris, bro? Oh, the swooshy thing that goes around it.
Yeah,
Like
looks like
like a comet whizzing around the symbol.
Yes.
Okay. The white Polaris symbolizes the guiding light of security and alludes to a constant presence and vigilance in space now and in the future. Well, where's the bit?
You got through that. Yeah.
Thanks. Where's the bit that talks about the two constellations on it?
Yeah, I left that I took that as out, well, not out, but because I wanted to touch on that just as a reminder.
Yeah, hit it. Because this is the punchline, isn't it?
Yeah,
What-
so-
what on earth are these two constellations or three constellations?
So they
doing?
could have chosen any constellation in the known universe, the ones that we know about. But they decided to use...
You think they would choose our constellation? We're in the Milky Way.
Well, yeah, but they've used if you're looking at the emblem, the logo,
Yeah.
to the left is the Draco
Okay.
star system, and then you've got the Palladian.
Hang on. Are you looking at the current one?
Yeah, that's the current one, yeah.
That's Draco there.
Yep, and then
And-
Palladium. So there's only
Okay.
two star systems that they refer to, right?
Right.
Now, so Draco is a constellation in the far northern sky, and in Latin, it's the name for dragon. Okay, so think about that. And then the Pleiades, also known as the Seven Sisters. What did I say?
The Sisters. The Seven Sinisters.
It's like Kiwi accent. Sisters.
Oh, okay.
And Messiah 45 is an open star cluster containing middle-aged hot B-type stars. Ooh, wouldn't mind meeting some hot B-type stars.
Especially the middle-aged ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not so much. In the northwest of the constellation Taurus. No, you're not Taurus. I know a few Taurus.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
So that's significance because nothing is by chance. They obviously chose those particular star systems or constellations, whatever you want to call it. But here's the thing. So this is on the Space Force website under the, I think, the emblem or the symbolism. 2 clusters of small stars, which I just talked about, represent the space assets developed, maintained, and operated by the US Space Force.
Right.
So that just, I found that really interesting.
Yeah.
That they represent space assets. Now, what is an asset? You own something. You own it.
So how does the Draco constellation and the Pleiadian constellation on our logo represent assets?
Exactly.
And in the only
developed, so we're developing these assets. So I'm developing them. This house,
right. The word
property,
developed is there. That's right.
Maintained and operated. So the US Space Force have some sort of ownership, relationship, and then I took it a step further, and I go, well, if in these stars you've got to have a little bit of knowledge, but there are beings that reside or come from these systems.
Yeah.
Think about, Star Wars, and they're going light speed into a different star system.
Yeah.
Well, if they own, operate, or have a relationship with these systems, then they also have the relationship with the beings.
Sorry, Rob, are you saying that the 2 constellations of Draco and Pleiades represent, in a nutshell, assets we have in the Space Force that perhaps have not yet been disclosed as to what we have, our ships, our craft, that come from the Draco or Pleiadian constellations?
Yeah. Well, maybe...
That's what you're saying? Yeah. It was very short. Yep. You're so matter of fact. Yeah, that's right, mate.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's just imagine you're from the Pleiadian system. You're living in Pleiades, right? You're Pleiadian.
Yeah.
And you were developing a Space Force, and just reverse it and go, well, on our logo, we've got the... What's our solar system called?
The Milky Way.
Milky Way,
Well, no. Our solar system is our solar system.
Solar system, yeah.
I don't know what the name is for it, but we're within the Milky Way.
Yeah, we don't even know where we live. But that would be the same thing. Like, oh, yeah, no, we've got this relationship with these human beings, for sure. Yeah, we know all about it. Yeah. What's the difference? You just reverse it.
The difference
That's my line of thinking.
It's like we are crediting our relationship with those beings for the existence of our Space Force.
Yeah, it's another way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just find that really interesting. And then you take it a step further and you go to NASA's logo. They also have the Draco and Pleiadian star systems in their logo under the NASA sign, but above, on top, is the Orion.
But this logo has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And the key thing there is this older logo also included Orion. But our
the
NASA one, but our new Space Force logo has ditched Orion.
Yeah, and why is that? Well, I can tell you one thing, that Orion is a constellation located on the celestial equator and visible throughout the world. It is one of the most conspicuous and recognizable constellations in the night sky. You can actually see Orion's belt. Yeah, it's a very famous or well-known constellation. And Orion is named after a hunter in Greek mythology. Hunter. So...
Okay.
And you got to remember that, astrologically speaking, every constellation, whether you're Aries or Taurus or Sagittarius, that's a constellation, right? A star system.
It's a star system. Yeah. We're not just talking star signs and mythology. That's actual...
Yeah. We have the Southern Cross. So that's something particular for the Southern Hemisphere that we can use to navigate,
Hey, look who's just come and joined us. It's Jacob Masters.
Jacob.
Hello, Stephen. And hello, my friend I haven't met yet.
Rob.
This is Rob.
Rob.
Yeah,
nice to
we'll
meet you,
do the
Rob.
official introduction. Yeah, nice to meet you.
Jacob's come for our next episode. He's a guest who is beautifully on time. Thank you for that. We're just winding up where we are on this one.
Beautiful.
So
I'll take it back.
We are. It's good timing, actually.
Yeah, it's great timing. We're just talking about the disclosure of alien aircraft footage and things that have been coming out in the news.
This has been big recently.
You heard about it as well?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Yeah, all the media presence, 60 Minutes, James Corden, Obama saying stuff. So we just, and then we've just segued into the USS or the Space Force. And then the reason why that was, began recently. Although it's actually, officially it started in 2019, but it's been on, for years, it's been in development,
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting what you're saying there, Rob, about the Orion relating to the Hunter, the Orion constellation. Because I think where we're heading with this is, it seems to me, if you were to be willing to draw a long bow on the meaning of those constellations placed onto the logos of the new United States Space Force, with the previous one having Orion now ditched off NASA, but you've got on the left Draco and Pleiades on the right. It's a little bit like saying, those are now the good guys, but Orion was a bit of a bad guy.
Yes, yeah.
Because it's clear to me that NASA having Orion on there is symbolic of the relationship NASA secretly had with the peoples, the beings of that constellation.
There's a reason for everything, and it's very specific.
Am I going too far with it?
No, I mean, you on the surface it's just a logo, but there's always an interpretation of what the logo stands for, right? It's about symbolism. You have a logo as an identifier. It's like you walk, if a police, what do you call it, logo, that's a police officer. They have a certain role in society. You immediately identify someone through a logo, becomes known, universally speaking. So, I find it just fascinating. I really do. Whether we're hitting the mark or we're way off, I don't know. But we can only interpret it and interpret how we see it.
Well, it's the start of a discussion. The start of
a deep discussion,
a deep dive into this, and stay tuned because I think we'll have more on this topic again soon. Meanwhile, Jacob, good to have you here. I think what we might do is start our episode with you. All right, guys.
Sounds good.
Tune in soon because Jacob will be right on for us in the next 10 seconds. For you, maybe the following week.